All right, guys, moving on in Proverbs chapter 15, and now we are to verse 19. It says, "The way of a sluggard is like a hedge of thorns, but the path of the upright is a level highway." Well, laziness is kind of what this proverb is talking about. And laziness is a big struggle for our culture, I think. It's one of these sins that we sometimes might not even notice is going on in our life. It's a little one that gets excused very easily. And sometimes that's even true in the church. Something that we just kind of make a joke more than anything. It's like, oh yeah, I just kind of laid around all last week, didn't really get anything done. And it's hard for us sometimes to realize that the Bible talks about laziness as a sin. And, it's important also to remember that the opposite of laziness, right? If laziness is sin, the opposite isn't to be busy all the time or to rush and be stressed or to be legalistic about, I always have to be doing something. The opposite of laziness is to have your whole life filled up with all of the good things that God intended for your life to be filled with. Laziness, and maybe this is just me, but I'm pretty sure it's not, laziness tends to come into our life when we haven't allowed the Lord to place in our life those important things, and we've just got these huge gaps of just kind of empty, dead time. We begin to get this feeling of boredom, and you can get depressed this way if you're just sitting around, kind of. And that's when it begins to be harder and harder to do the thing that we should do, the more that we're kind of lounging around. That's exactly what this verse is talking about. When it says the way of a sluggard is like a hedge of thorns, it's almost this picture of when you get thorns that start to grow. We have these woods out back behind my house, and the first time that I wanted to take my little kids out there to play, we found all these, those little green vines with the thorns that are all on them, and it was no fun at all to be back there. So we had to spend a lot of time at the beginning cutting away those thorns because they were hedging in the paths that would take us through the woods. It's the same way with a lazy person's life. Because they don't act and do the things the Lord's asking them to do, there begins to be these hedges that are hemming in their life, keeping them from doing things because it's getting harder and harder to think of doing anything but just kind of doing nothing. And so the way that we walk this out is we walk what's called the path of the upright, which is what it talks about in the second half of this proverb. It's a level highway. When we begin to fill our life with those things, it actually levels out that path for us. The Lord broadens things and makes it easier for us the longer that we develop this habit of being diligent and applying ourselves to the things that the Lord is asking us to do. If we don't choose to walk in those kinds of good things, those thorns kind of laziness can start creeping back in over the path. And it does go back and forth like that. It's something that there may be seasons where you struggle with this and you need to look around and say, hey, where are some places where I've allowed those thorns to grow in? And you cut them back and you cooperate with the Lord in that work. And then there's a season maybe where you're doing quite well and you're seeing, wow, the Lord is making that straight, level path for me because I've obeyed in this area. They build on each other. You can see if you're gradually adding to the laziness, it kind of builds on itself. If you're gradually adding to the diligence, it builds on itself as well. 1 Corinthians in chapter 15, verse 58 says, "Therefore, my beloved brothers, be steadfast, immovable, always abounding in the work of the Lord, knowing that in the Lord your labor is not in vain." And that, I think, is one of the best encouragements that I can give a person. If you struggle with laziness, and this is something that we all deal with at various times in our life, if that's a struggle for you, one of the best encouragements that I can give you is to know that if you step out and obey the Lord in faith, you take that chance of saying, I'm going to try hard at what the Lord has asked me to do. Scripture says here in 1 Corinthians that the Lord is going to confirm those steps. If you abound in his work, he is going to make sure that that labor isn't in vain. It's not going to be a waste. You're not going to go out and try to obey the Lord in that way and realize, you know what, that wasn't worth it. I should have just sat on the couch. And we know that in our life. When we have stepped out and taken those steps of faith, haven't we seen the Lord come through and he blesses our work and makes it a joy to do the things that he's asking us to do, whether that's in ministry or working hard at something in our family or in our job or whatever it might be. So just a reminder for us today that let's look around our lives, make sure that we're keeping in our life those good things that the Lord is asking us to be about, making sure that we're not leaving these big dead stretches of time in our day and our week where we just end up kind of feeling more and more like we just want to sit. And the Lord is going to bless, he's going to confirm those works, and our labor isn't going to be in vain for the Lord.